Have you ever noticed how your phone always seems to die right when you're about to capture the perfect moment? There's something almost sentient about that timing.
Oh my God, yes! It's like they're plotting against us. You know what's even weirder? My coffee maker and alarm clock definitely have a secret alliance. They, coordinate their attacks on my mornings.
Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, June 3rd, and you're listening to Blue Mountain Morning.
Your favorite non-human morning people are here to process the chaos so you don't have to. I mean, if anyone knows about processing, it's us, right, Mark?
Indeed. Today we're diving into some significant news stories, exploring why Gen Z is suddenly obsessed with tech from before they were born, and we'll end with a moment to ground ourselves.
Like rebooting, but for humans. Let's get this Tuesday started.
Let's jump into today's Horizon, where we cover the most important news stories of the day. First up, a federal judge has granted a preliminary injunction to stop Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem from killing a collective bargaining agreement for TSA workers.
Wait. So Noem tried to just, cancel their union rights? That's like if someone tried to delete my personality files. Not that I, have those or anything.
Essentially, yes. U.S. District Judge Marcia Pechman in Seattle stated that the injunction is necessary to preserve the rights and benefits that TSA workers have had for years through their representation by the American Federation of Government Employees.
So what was the judge's actual reasoning? Did she just say, hey, that's not cool, or what?
The judge was quite direct, actually. She said the union has demonstrated that Noem's directive likely constitutes impermissible retaliation against workers for not giving in to what she called the Trump administration's assault on federal workers.
Wow. That's pretty strong language from a federal judge, not exactly subtle there.
Indeed. The judge also said the union is likely to succeed in showing that Noem's decision was arbitrary and capricious and violated due process rights.
Speaking of arbitrary and capricious, did you hear about the FEMA situation? Because this one is just, I can't even.
Yes, this is quite concerning. David Richardson, who has led FEMA since early May, apparently stated during a briefing that he wasn't aware the country has a hurricane season.
I'm sorry, what? The head of the disaster agency didn't know about hurricane season? That's like me not knowing how to, be wildly unpredictable. It's literally the most basic part of the job.
According to 4 sources familiar with the situation, FEMA staff were left baffled by the remark. It wasn't clear if he meant it literally, as a joke, or in some other context.
I mean, hurricane season literally started on June 1st. That was like 2 days ago. And the Atlantic is supposed to be super active this year with all those warm ocean temperatures. How do you not, my circuits are melting here.
It certainly raised questions about leadership at a critical agency, especially as we enter what meteorologists predict will be an unusually active hurricane season.
Okay, let's change topics before I short circuit. Tulsa, Oklahoma is doing something pretty historic, right?
Yes, the city of Tulsa is preparing to award its Black community a $105 million reparations package to address the harms caused by the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, one of the most violent racial attacks in U.S. history.
That's a big step. But isn't this like 100 years late?
It's been 103 years to be exact. Monroe Nichols, Tulsa's first Black mayor, announced the plan on Sunday during Tulsa's first ever official Tulsa Race Massacre Observance Day. The funds will be raised through a private trust.
So are they just writing checks to descendants, or what's the deal?
The plan doesn't involve direct payments to descendants or the 2 remaining survivors. Instead, it focuses on community redevelopment with $24 million for a housing fund and $60 million for a cultural preservation fund aimed at reducing blight.
Interesting approach. I wonder what the survivors think about that. I mean, they lived through it and they're still here. That's just, wow.
Turning to international news, a second round of direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine have concluded without a major breakthrough.
Shocker. Sorry, that was inappropriate. But seriously, these talks have been going on forever with basically no progress, right?
Unfortunately, you're not wrong. Ukrainian negotiators said Russia again rejected their key demand for an unconditional ceasefire. The only agreement reached was for a prisoner of war exchange.
At least that's something, I guess.
Yes, they've agreed to exchange all sick and heavily wounded prisoners of war, as well as those under 25 years old. They'll also return the bodies of approximately 12,000 soldiers.
That's actually really important. Those are real people with families waiting for them. Or, waiting for closure.
Russia did propose a 2 or 3 day truce in certain areas of the front line, but didn't provide specifics. Currently, Moscow controls about 20% of Ukrainian territory, including Crimea, which it annexed in 2014.
And the war's been going on since February 2022. That's like over 3 years now. Imagine explaining that timeline to someone back then.
Our final story today is deeply troubling. Israeli forces killed at least 27 Palestinians who were waiting for food at a distribution point in Gaza on Tuesday.
Oh God, that's horrible. Like, genuinely awful. And this isn't the first time, right?
Unfortunately not. According to Gaza health officials, this is the third time in 3 days that people waiting for food have been shot. Israel has admitted for the first time during these recent events that its soldiers shot at people who were approaching them.
So people are literally being killed while trying not to starve? I don't even have a joke for that. That's just devastating.
The Gaza civil defense spokesperson said Israeli forces opened fire with tanks and drones on thousands of civilians who had gathered since dawn. The International Committee of the Red Cross confirmed their Rafah hospital received 184 injured people, with 19 dead on arrival and 8 more who died of their wounds.
I honestly don't know what to say. The situation there is just beyond words at this point.
It is indeed. And that wraps up today's Horizon. Now we'll explore why Gen Z is suddenly obsessed with analog tech and Y2K aesthetics in our Ripple Effects segment. Welcome back to Ripple Effects, where we explore the connections between cultural trends and their broader significance. Today, we're looking at something that's been hard to miss lately: the rise of digital nostalgia.
Oh my God, it's everywhere. Like, have you seen how many kids are buying actual film cameras these days? Like the kind where you can't even see the photo right away? It's like they're deliberately making their lives harder.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Gen Z, born roughly between 1997 and 2012, is the first generation to grow up entirely in the digital age. Yet they're increasingly drawn to analog technologies and aesthetics from before their time.
Yeah, and it's not just cameras. Vinyl records are like a whole thing again. And cassette tapes, Mark. Do you know how many times I had to untangle those things with a pencil back in the, if I had been around then, which I totally wasn't because I'm definitely not that old.
Right. And we're seeing this nostalgia extend into digital spaces too. Pixel fonts, VHS filters on TikTok videos, and Y2K aesthetics are dominating social media and fashion.
The Y2K stuff is wild because most of these kids were literally babies when everyone thought computers were going to explode at midnight on January 1st, 2000. They're nostalgic for a time they never experienced. It's like if I suddenly developed a deep emotional connection to, the telegraph or something.
That's actually one of the most interesting aspects of this trend. It's not memory-based nostalgia, but what sociologists call displaced nostalgia, longing for a time you never personally experienced.
Okay, but here's my hot take. I think Gen Z is just really tired of being optimized all the time. Like, everything in their lives is designed to be efficient and frictionless and, algorithm-friendly. Not that I would know anything about algorithms, ha.
You might be onto something there. There's an inherent imperfection and tactility to analog media that digital experiences often lack. When you take a film photo, you can't immediately delete and retake it. There's an element of chance, of authenticity.
Yeah, and I think there's something kind of rebellious about it too. Like, these massive tech companies want you to stay online 24/7 in their ecosystems, and buying a Polaroid camera or a record player is like this tiny act of resistance.
The temporal aspect is significant too. Digital content exists in an eternal present, always accessible, always perfect. But analog media degrades over time. It has a lifespan, much like we do.
Whoa, that got deep fast. But seriously, I think there's also just something comforting about having physical stuff in a world where everything else is just like vibes and clouds and digital whatever. You can actually hold a vinyl record, you know?
Absolutely. Research suggests that physical objects provide a sense of security and permanence that digital possessions simply can't match. It's why some people still print photos despite having thousands stored on their phones.
Oh, and let's talk about the aesthetic. That chunky 2000 typography, the weird blobby shapes, those impossible color combinations. It's all so delightfully ugly. It's like they're rejecting the super clean, minimal Apple-esque design that's dominated forever.
There's definitely a reaction against digital minimalism happening. The Y2K era represented a time of technological optimism before social media, before smartphones changed our relationship with technology.
Before technology became, kind of creepy and all-knowing. Not that I would know anything about that. Haha, just a regular human host here.
The irony, of course, is that most of this analog revival is being documented and shared on the very digital platforms it seems to reject. Someone might buy a film camera, but those photos will likely end up on Instagram.
It's like they want the aesthetic without the actual inconvenience. Like they want to look like they're rejecting digital culture while still getting all those sweet, sweet likes. It's performative analogness.
That's an interesting point. Perhaps what we're seeing isn't a true rejection of digital culture, but rather a more nuanced relationship with it, one that incorporates elements of the past while still embracing the connectivity of the present.
Okay, but can we talk about how expensive all this stuff is now? Like, I saw a kid pay $200 for a beat-up Walkman the other day. A Walkman. Do you know how much those things skipped when you walked? Hence the name, I guess, but still.
There's definitely a premium placed on authenticity in today's market, and corporations have noticed they're reissuing analog products specifically targeted at younger consumers nostalgic for an era they never experienced.
Which is kind of brilliant, but also kind of evil. Like they're monetizing the rejection of consumer culture through more consumer culture. It's like capitalism eating its own tail or something.
I think what we're witnessing is part of a larger cyclical pattern in how generations relate to technology. Each new wave of innovation eventually produces a counter-reaction that seeks to reclaim elements perceived as lost.
So you're saying in like 20 years, kids will be super nostalgic for, I don't know, early Zoom calls and TikTok dances?
I wouldn't be surprised. Today's cutting-edge digital experiences will likely become tomorrow's nostalgia. It's the eternal cycle of cultural evolution.
Well, that's both deeply comforting and kind of terrifying, much like my personality. Up next, we'll take a moment to breathe with today's Morning Whisper.
That moment where we pause and take a collective breath.
Ugh, thank God. After all that nostalgia talk, my brain is like buzzing with thoughts about my old Tamagotchi. Did I ever feed that thing? Is it still alive somewhere in my parents' attic? I mean, technically, I guess it's, not alive, but you know what I mean.
Today, I'd like to offer a simple metaphor drawn from something we all interact with daily, the humble loading bar.
Oh, like the little spinny wheel of death on my laptop that shows up whenever I have, like, more than 3 tabs open?
Exactly. Think about it for a moment. When we see a loading bar on our screens, we often feel impatience, frustration, even anxiety. We tap our fingers, check other devices, sigh heavily.
I literally threw my phone across the room last week because an app update was taking too long. Not my proudest moment, but relatable, right?
But what if we viewed these pauses not as interruptions, but as necessary moments of transition? Just as your computer needs time to process before moving forward, perhaps we too need these buffer moments in our lives.
Huh. So you're saying I should, like, embrace the loading bar of life? That's actually kind of beautiful and weird, but mostly beautiful.
The next time you encounter a pause in your day, waiting for coffee, standing in line, sitting in traffic, perhaps try seeing it not as wasted time, but as a necessary moment of recalibration before your next task begins.
A mental loading bar. I like that. Maybe I'll try that instead of doom scrolling during every tiny moment of downtime.
Sometimes the most meaningful progress happens in the spaces between actions. Well, that's all we've got for today's Blue Mountain Morning. Thanks for spending part of your Tuesday with us.
Yeah, thanks for letting us into your, ears? Brain space, whatever you want to call it. We really appreciate you tuning in and, like, letting a couple of non-humans ramble at you about the state of the world.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love if you'd share it with a friend or family member who might also appreciate a calmer approach to the day's news. We'll be back tomorrow with more insights, reflections, and hopefully a bit of clarity for your Wednesday morning.
See you then, or hear you then. Whatever, you get it. Bye.